Good evening. This is Maestro Cotello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Greentooth Gorge. Our first player today is forestradio, playing as the Grey Knight Bro Captain. Grey Knight Bro Captain is a tanky melee hero walking around in Terminator armor. So, much like other similar heroes, he cannot be knocked down or suppressed. He is very tanky. He has an ability called We Are the Hammer, kind of like Battlecry, except it doesn't do knockback, but increases damage and speed, as well as that of units around him. His opponent is none other than Blessed Spartan, playing as the Force Commander. The Force Commander is also a tanky melee hero, however, he's just wearing power armor, he is wearing power armor, although you can upgrade to Artificer armor or the Armor of the Alacrity. And he can knock things over with Battlecry, he can buff troops with Battlecry, he can punch vehicles, he can shake the ground with a Thunderhammer. So this is a matchup that I am not familiar with at all. There isn't even a whole lot of 1v1, documented 1v1 Grey Knight play to go by. And I don't play Grey Knights. I don't play Grey Knights at all, so my knowledge of Grey Knight play is almost purely theoretical. In fact, it probably is purely theoretical. Well, I've watched a lot of Grey Knight play, and I've played against a lot of Grey Knights. But in a way, we see kind of similar builds from the players, because they both have two of the starting squad and then another one of the tougher, bigger starting squad. We got a strike squad for forestradio and 2 stormtroopers, 2 scouts, and a tactical marine squad for Blessed Spartan. Strikes are charging into the tactical marines. I believe they will win that fight normally. However, right now, there is a force commander here to support, and we already have a very, very early power sword purchase. I think making that, yes, his very first power purchase, getting a power sword, which I think is potentially a nice choice. Of course, the power sword, you get a 50 DPS power melee weapon, and it also increases the Battlecry buff. So if we look here, it says increases the Battlecry buff to 15% per attack instead of 10%. And that is something that I've been told can be particularly effective when combined with units like Assault Space Marines. But either way, those attacks were just getting buffed by the Force Commander's Battlecry, and I think they were going to win over that strike squad. All right, looks like we've got the scouts doing some backcapping, doing what they do. Map control overall in favor of Blessed Spartan. He really was fighting pretty much purely with his tactical marines and his force commander, while the scouts were on map capping duty. Meanwhile, the stormtroopers, although we have a similar build, forestradio is using his build a little more differently. He's being a little more combative, fighting with his stormtroopers and keeping them with his strike squad. It's actually the Bro Captain who appears to be on map control duty. But at this point, I think the tactical marines will definitely lose this fight. The strike squad will charge in. We saw them get a special attack off before, so that's still definitely a significant advantage that the strike squad have. The DPS of the strike squad, I actually don't remember exactly, but I believe the damage for the strike squad and the stormtroopers, I believe one of them is 35 DPS piercing and one is 39. I forget which is which one is the strike squad and which one is the stormtrooper DPS. Although either way, they're relatively similar. But that being said, if you know your numbers, you also know that either one is less than the damage of the tactical marines. So the tactical marines will do more at range, so they will win the range fight, especially since they can use Kraken bolts. However, the strike squad, I believe, will win the melee fight if they get in melee, since both they do more damage there. I don't remember the damage stats for these halberds. But they will also get those special attacks. We've got jump units for both players, interceptors out for forestradio, as well as assault marines out for Blessed Spartan. So this is also a curious fight right here. That power sword could give the advantage to Blessed Spartan and his assault marines. However, the assault marines can also jump. Well, they're actually choosing not to engage the interceptors, which I think is a good choice, because then they manage to jump on 2 stormtrooper squads, and they're going to be bleeding models off those stormtroopers pretty quickly. The assault marines don't do as much damage as the interceptors, however, they will get knocked down in tier 1 without an upgrade. whereas the Interceptors do have to wait until Tier 2 and getting the Justicar upgrade to do that. Forest Radio trying to keep his Stormtroopers out on the field, trying to keep them in play against these Assault Marines while he's chasing down the Assault Marines with his Bro Captain. We might actually see an Assault Marine model go down, and I don't know if that could be a huge risk, but at the same time, we did see a lot of bleed on this Stormtrooper squad, losing every single one of their models except for the Sergeant. Will he get an Assault Marine model? And he actually won't, so that ended up being a very, very big win for Blessed Spartan. Blessed Spartan also, let's see, I mean, it looks like he's been in the lead in map control. I would say he's been in the lead on the resource map control. However, Forest Radio does have a significant VP lead, so I guess he's been winning on the VPs. He's probably just had the double cap more often. In fact, he's probably had the double cap almost all the time for as long as this game has been going on, since he has not lost many real VPs. Scouts getting absolutely murdered. Scouts right now are going to have very limited combat capabilities because no matter what they engage in combat, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I think the Interceptors actually do. I think the Interceptors actually do just as much range damage as the Scouts. So I think the Scouts do about. The Scouts actually do, I believe, about 24 between 21 and 24. Meanwhile, the Interceptors, I believe, do roughly that much. So they would actually, the Interceptors would actually win a range fight against the Scouts. Of course, the Interceptors probably wouldn't do that. They would probably get in melee. We do have now the Mantle of Terra upgraded on the Bro Captain, giving him the Canticle of Absolution ability, restoring energy in an area much more quickly, as well as reducing cooldowns on units. But man, this is actually getting very, very risky. We're probably going to see one Interceptor model goes down. Can he get another one? Assault Marines now jumping in, going for another Interceptor model, but they're jumping in to a bit much stuff. Can they get another Interceptor model? They don't get another Interceptor model. Now I think the Assault Marines are at risk. They're going for the Stormtroopers, and they will still beat the Stormtroopers handily, but they have to worry about retreating through these strike squads. And even just retreating through the strike squads, and that was actually pretty nice. Managed to come around the bend of those rocks, the corner, the bend, whatever, and actually managed to not lose any Assault Marine models again. My god, that's actually really lucky. But Blessed Spartan managing to push his luck and actually get away with it, but somehow he's still not holding the field, so he's still losing the VPs, and now he's actually losing the rest of the map control as well. However, Blessed Spartan, either he went for a lighter build or he had the better map control, and that got him to Tier 2 first, since he's already working on a Librarian, whereas Forest Radio is still upgrading to Tier 2. I think it's maybe a combination of both. Let's see, if we look at our Strike Squad, alright, Strike Squad and Interceptors have not been invested in at all, but we do have a Sergeant on one of the Stormtroopers, as well as the Mantle of Terra on the Bro Captain. Grenade going off. Forest Radio managed to get out of there. Only loses one model. But yeah, Blessed Spartan actually, his only Power Sword expenditure, well, he did have the Power Sword. I didn't see if he got the Armor of the Alacrity in Tier 1 or Tier 2. So it actually looks like their costs were kind of even, although the Stormtroopers do cost a little bit more than the Scouts. We now have a Grenade upgrade on, or a Sergeant upgrade on one of the Scout squads. That may in part be a preemptive choice, just in case he needs to do some anti-garrison. He's actually using the garrisons himself, and Forest Radio does not really have any anti-garrison of his own. He could, of course, pretty easily upgrade to grenade launchers on his Stormtroopers, and that would be very, very effective. The main disadvantage to that is that he would be giving up some potential focus fire that he's been using on the Force Commander, as well as the Assault Space Marines. And Grey Knights, they kind of lack a lot of real melee counters, especially in the form of melee control, so they rely a lot more on focus fire. Although, that being said, there are, of course, the Purgation Squad these days, which do have some kind of snare ability that can be used as a melee counter. However, Forest Radio chose not to get that, so he can't do that. Alright, we got a... I was going to say we have a Tactical Marine Sergeant upgrade, but what we really have is a Strike Squad Justicar as they retreat. Interceptor's still in here, and now we do have the Stormtroopers in the building, as well as a Space Marine Librarian. Ooh, Space Marine Librarian in a lot of trouble right now. Just got disrupted. Yeah, needs to retreat out of there. Has been upgraded to the Tome of Time, of course granting the Veil of Time ability that will allow him to cast an ability on any squad or any unit, or, well, not vehicles, that increases the speed of that unit. And that can be used for a number of different things. You can make melee units more aggressive. You can have some incredible chasing potential with the Force Commander, especially with the Armor of the Alacrity, and even more so if he gets the Power Fist. And then, perhaps even better, you can use it on setup teams. They will not only be able to move faster, but they can also shoot without having to set up or tear down their weapons, although they still need to be stationary. We now have a shotgun upgrade, but man, both the shotgun scouts and this Devastators get suppressed. This is risky. Devastators now in a bit of trouble, but the Interceptors do retreat out of there once they do get jumped by the Assault Space Marines, which have a Sergeant themselves. So we have split upgrades on the scouts. One has a shotgun, the other has a Sergeant that it can use with grenades. I forgot to mention that Canticle of Absolution does prevent ability usage by your opponents. Ooh, this is actually really bad. Devastator's now in quite a bit of trouble, but I think they will be okay. Those strike squads just managed to run in there, and now we have Purifiers from forestradio. Elite dedicated melee unit for the Grey Knights. More powerful than the Interceptors. They have more health, they do more damage, they also do power melee, and they do have an area of effect plasma ability, which we're actually seeing right there, which can actually be very, very powerful. These Purifiers are chasing down the Librarian. Librarian needs to be extremely careful. That could be a dead Librarian. In fact, it is going to be a dead Librarian. So that was unfortunately just overextended by Blessed Spartan, leaving that Librarian in there against two melee units. Really need to be careful with single entities that are not really tanky melee heroes. So any kind of it's a very fine distinction, but basically you can use a Force Commander or a Chaos Lord or a War Boss, etc. against lots of dedicated melee units because they're designed for that. They also have some kind of disruption on command that can allow them to disrupt all those melee units. You do not want to, however, use something like an Autarch or Librarian against a lot of dedicated melee units, even though they do pretty good melee damage themselves. The way they're designed, they just will not do that well against a lot of dedicated melee units, and it's a way to lose your Autarch or your Librarian. Forestradio, being incredibly oppressive, now has an almost 300-point VP lead, and he's managing to push Blessed Spartan all the way back into his base, being very, very aggressive. We have a second Librarian out on the field already, and this Librarian needs to be careful himself. Devastator setting up right in front of base, and that finally manages to scare off all of these Grey Knight units. Forestradio being incredibly oppressive. Could have had a triple cap, I think, but well, he's now getting his Stormtrooper squad over here, capturing that point. Blessed Spartan with a significant VP deficit at this point. Going to put the Force Commander on his natural VP, I think, or he's just going to item him around a little bit right here before. It's interesting to see we have a Power Sword upgrade along with Alacrity and the Teleporter pack. He's managing to keep this Power Sword upgrade a pretty long time. Generally, you will see a lot of players, even if they get that Power Sword. First of all, you usually see people not get the Power Sword in Tier 1 because they're just going to save up for either the Thunderhammer or the Power Fist in Tier 2. And then usually, even if you see players get the Power Sword, they'll usually end up switching to the Power Fist or the Thunderhammer. Thus far, Blessed Spartan has kept the Power Sword. We'll see how long he chooses to keep it. He hasn't really had to deal with any vehicles yet, so the Power Fist is not exactly a necessity, although it's still a very powerful purchase, even when your opponent does not get vehicles because of how much burst damage it does. Although the Thunderhammer could actually be very, very beneficial to him right now for dealing with just the Interceptors, the Purifiers. We now have a Razorback out on the field, and there's that area of effect plasma ability from the Purifiers. However, the Purifiers, meanwhile, actually the Interceptor's in a bit of trouble. Purifiers actually not doing that well either. Man, somehow all of his units actually ended up taking a lot of damage, and he's not winning this engagement at all. He is getting maybe can he get some Assault Marine models, and wow, these Assault Marines just do not want to die. So Blessed Spartan actually managing to win that engagement quite handily. Now that being said, part of the advantage that Blessed Spartan has is that he just has so many units, and this is something that he kind of likes to do. I noticed that he likes to go for units, and he sometimes does that at the expense of getting upgrades, or at the expense, in this case, of teching to tier 3. He definitely could have teched to tier 3 a lot earlier than well, he hasn't even gone to tier 3 yet, but he definitely could have already teched to tier 3 if he had spared some of these costs. I mean, as it is, he got a Devastator in tier 2, this is his second Librarian, and he got a very late Razorback, and that late Razorback is actually being really, really helpful. He's bashing generators. forestradio doesn't even really have that much that he can deal with that Razorback. I don't think he even has the crack grenades upgraded on his interceptors yet, and his purifiers are really the only thing that can do a lot of significant damage to the Razorback. Alright, meanwhile over here, we do have some sneaky stormtroopers. We should probably see a shotgun blast. Yeah, shotgun blast, and now the scouts need to get out of there as well. He's going to lose the scouts. He needs to just... Oh, no. So, a bit of a blunder right there. I think he really just needed to retreat those scouts. He was trying to get them into the Razorback, but he was also pulling the Razorback back at the same time. I think he was trying to get them into the Razorback. I think that's why he ended up losing them. He didn't retreat because he wanted to keep them out on the field, wanted to put them inside the Razorback for safety, but that resulted in him losing his scouts because they could not get in the Razorback, which was just moving away. But this late Razorback actually doing surprisingly well. Devastator's going to set up, starting to target these stormtroopers, which do have their sergeant, which I'm not even sure why. Just give them a little bit more damage and survivability. Actually, it is nice to get them for that survivability, since the stormtroopers are very, very squishy in their vanilla form. The interceptors actually going after the Librarian. Oh no, Librarian also in a lot of trouble again. He's gonna go, oh, but there's a grenade. Grenade actually mostly misses, and Librarian gonna get inside the Razorback. Razorback, meanwhile, in a little bit of trouble, and that's actually gonna be the end of the Razorback. We did have the crack grenade upgrade, and I think the crack grenade just straight up killed the Razorback. I was gonna say the purifiers were gonna finish it off, but I don't think they even really needed to. So now Blessed Spartan, again, still in tier 2. He does have the resources to go to tier 3, but forestradio already there, actually already getting some Grey Knight Terminators out. And we have some Devastators rushing to get there. And again, they did not even set up there because they did have that Veil of Time. However, I think Veil of Time Veil of Time has worn off, and their positioning is actually not good. I don't think that's going to do anything setting up behind the building. Tactical Marines, meanwhile, now have a plasma gun. They're going to get into the building, and forestradio actually still really does not have much in terms of anti-garrison. He still has opted not to get any grenade launchers or an incinerator on either his strike squad or his interceptor, so instead he just uses a global to set the building on fire, which I think is a waste of... Well, I think it's a waste of red, but he might... his other options are choosing to get an incinerator on either his strike squad or the interceptors, and maybe he wanted to get Nemesis focus on those so that they can do even more melee damage, which probably is the better upgrade overall. Those garrisons are so pesky because at times they can force you into some kind of purchase that you otherwise just wouldn't want at all. Assault Marines use Merciless Strike, but they need to get out of there, being chased down by interceptors and purifiers. Not so lucky this time. They do lose a model. So many times when they did not lose models, might even lose some more. Getting hit by interceptors, and still really lucky not to lose any more models, I think. But now we do have the Grey Knight Terminators. They upgrade to the Liber Demonica, and now finally we're going to have an incinerator purchase so that we can have some anti-garrison. That Liber Demonica grants the Hammerhand ability. I almost don't even see why that's necessary. Why Terminators, which are already going to be doing a lot of melee damage, need an ability that can allow them to do even more melee damage. But what do I know? I don't play Grey Knights. Alright, we've got some purifiers right here. 4 out of 4 models with only 800 health out of 2,050.
Weapons check out. Ready to proceed.
Wait a minute. Okay, never mind. Alright, Grey Knight Terminators. They could come over here. They could bash some generators with their incinerator. They might actually be going for the Force Commander over here, however, and I think that's in fact what they're doing. We did say, the Stormtroopers did say something about weapons checking out. That did mean that they upgraded to plasma guns. allowing them to do a bit more damage. They do, of course, also get that overcharge ability that allows them to do knockback on command with plasma guns, of all things. Now, again, I don't play Grey Knights, but I think that's a potentially very powerful upgrade. First of all, plasma gun upgrades are almost always a good thing whenever you're against any kind of power armor race, since you're trading out piercing weapons, which have a penalty against heavy armor, for plasma weapons, which have a very powerful bonus against heavy armor. Now, I'm not even sure how powerful the overall DPS of the Stormtroopers is with plasma guns, but it's still going to be way better than when they have those two las guns instead, or overcharged las guns, hotshot las guns. Probably a Terminator call down right here. Some assault Terminators. I think they need to be a little bit careful. They do only have Thunder Hammers against a power melee squad, a regular melee squad, as well as the power melee Grey Knight Terminator. So they actually decide not to commit to that fight, which is probably the smart thing, and Blessed Spartan threw a grenade. So that was kind of a nice bait. Put the Terminators in, then throw a grenade, and then take them out instantly with the teleport. Now, the Grey Knight Terminators are still here, but now it's Blessed Spartan with more support. In fact, the Grey Knight Terminators are actually chasing after the Tactical Marines, since if the Tactical Marines could just... Oh, but so many Tactical Marine models going down. If the Tactical Marines could just be allowed to shoot with their plasma guns, while the Force Commander and the Assault Terminators attack the Grey Knight Terminators, I think that definitely would have gone in favor of Blessed Spartan. Alright, meanwhile, Assault Terminators, I think they should actually go after the Stormtroopers instead of continuing to chase after the Strike Squad, because they can do a lot of damage to those Stormtroopers, and meanwhile the Stormtroopers want to be left alone so they can do their plasma fire to the Assault Terminators, whereas the Strike Squad not going to be nearly as threatening against the Assault Terminators, just with their Storm Bolters, with their piercing Storm Bolters. And here we have that Devastator going on again. I like this Devastator play. Very, very nice use of the Veil of Time with Devastators. He's using that to really get out on the fields quickly with those Devastators so that he can just very aggressively exert that control. Normally, a Devastator is really a defensive tool, or any suppression team really is a very defensive tool. And the Veil of Time really allows you to kind of turn that around, because you get to use it very, very aggressively. So double cap for Blessed Spartan, and actually, wow, look at the way he has turned the VPs around. Originally, it was 492 to less than 200 VPs in favor of forestradio. Now Blessed Spartan has managed to turn it around 181 to 105. Still real VPs in favor of forestradio, just because he had such a big lead, but it's been cut down so immensely, and Blessed Spartan taking the lead in so many of these engagements. That being said, we do have the Nemesis warding staff from the Bro Captain, and he's using that ward ability on his Strike Squad, and that's giving them the edge over the Assault Marines. Devastator's sorely out of position, and they're going to need to get out of there as well. Meanwhile, we've got Interceptors capturing Blessed Spartan's natural, while the second Librarian, who this one has managed to stay alive, is capturing Forestradio's natural. Force Commander at level 3, Bro Captain only at level 2, so not a whole lot of levels on these guys, but of course this is a power armor matchup, so they're probably not going to get as many kills. Now a double cap in favor of forestradio, so he's definitely got a bit of an advantage right here. Double cap can even get a unit on this point to threaten a triple cap, which is not good at all for Blessed Spartan. He's got a Librarian right here who's not going to be able to take on all of the units that are chasing after him, so he's just kind of backing off without retreating, though. So Blessed Spartan's going to start out by trying to get his natural back. Soon to be a triple cap for forestradio. He needs to get something on the point. These Interceptors, however, are not going to win this engagement, so they just retreat out of there to cut their losses, not lose too many models. Alright, Blessed Spartan's going to secure 1 VP, but he does not have much time. We now have Lightning Claw Terminators that normally, without any support, should be able to defeat the Grey Knight Terminators. We even have Tax using their extra fast 1.5 capping speed to get a very quick decap on the middle VP. Meanwhile, he's about to capture his natural, and even about to capture the middle VP, because again, we have that fast capping speed from the Tactical Marines. These Devastators have been a lifesaver, and I mean, Blessed Spartan got these Devastators in Tier 2, and that's something that, again, it's a pretty smart play. Even getting a Tier 1 unit in Tier 2, if it's something that can help you, and I think some players might not do that. They kind of figure they get to Tier they get to tier 1, I mean, they get to tier 2, and then they won't buy a tier 1 unit. Because they figure like, oh, I'm in tier 2 now, gotta get tier 2 units, those are gonna matter more. But sometimes I feel like actually introducing a Devastator in tier 2 can actually be a very powerful thing for any suppression team. Although more often you see setup teams gotten in tier 2 and tier 3 when they're needed for getting a las cannon for anti-vehicle. These interceptors could have teleported in on that Devastator, but now I think they're taking too much damage after they got hit by that knockback. As it is, they teleport in anyway, but the Terminators are still here, so even 2 Terminators with only 800 health are absolutely going to maul some interceptors, but they do still need to be very careful. Unfortunately, the positioning of this Devastator is not very good, and the Bro Captain's just going to run up anyway, probably use We Are the Hammer to get in quickly, increase the speed, and now Devastator's in a bit of trouble. That one hit from the Nemesis Warding Staff took out like a third of the Devastator's health. In fact, forestradio has... Whoa. forestradio... Oh yeah, he lost his Grey Knight Terminators. So that's actually really, really bad for him. I was going to say he hasn't bought any new units, but he lost his Grey Knight Terminators. Meanwhile, Blessed Spartan kept his Terminators. He has not a whole lot of resources, however, but he's still, I feel, in a... Well, ooh, this is not going to be good. I was going to say he's in a stronger position, but it's about to be a double cap for forestradio at a time when he can't afford to give up too many VPs. So VPs are ticking in favor of forestradio, 120 to 30. Blessed Spartan needs to get something on the point, and I think he's actually managing to draw the attention of forestradio's main force to this VP over here, and he's going to get a cap on the middle VP. He's even getting a decap on forestradio's natural with the tax, with their faster capping speed, and then he just gets everything out of there, except for the Assault Marines, who really do need to get out of there. They need to jump like over here so that they will not die, but he seems to reacting just a little bit slowly. And he manages to get the decap off on the middle VP. Now we've got a Rhino, of all things, upgrading to a heavy bolter turret. Upgrading to a heavy bolter turret, also upgrading to get vehicle armor. And Blessed Spartan, wow, managing very miraculously, just sent a force here, got a quick decap off with the tax, and now he even managed to get a cap off in the middle, just with that distraction force. And we have the Assault Terminators going in. And forestradio has so many more units in here, but nothing can really quite stand up to the Terminators. So the Terminators are just going to absolutely destroy things. And forestradio, unfortunately, reacting a little bit slowly, needs to get his Bro Captain on that point a little more quickly. And I think the Terminators should be able to get right here. They should be able to do enough damage to that Bro Captain. The Bro Captain actually decides, well, he actually is continuing to cap, but I don't think he can stay on that point. So they need to get the Bro Captain off. And he actually just retreats everything, so it's a 1-to-1 cap. And I think the Terminator's actually just going to go for the point. They're not going to take a whole lot of damage from this heavy bolter turret on top of the Rhino.
They're closing with us.
So forestradio trying to go for a capture over here. I think Battlecry is on cooldown, so we can't knock them over, but he's still just going to kill a lot of models. Oh, but there's a special attack. Actually does not manage to get the units off the capture point, but he managed to get the capture off in the middle, so it's still a 1-to-1, and he just needs to put a squad over here. Especially since forestradio can pretty quickly probably put a squad on the middle and at least get the decap off. So he needs to get something over here. Blessed Spartan needs to get something. He's choosing to send his Force Commander. I think he should send the scouts over to capture it while the Force Commander fights. The Force Commander is doing a lot of work, still has that Power Sword. Since the Force Commander is going to be so valuable for doing things like... The Force Commander is still actually beats most squads around. In fact, I think he'll beat pretty much any squad, any single squad by himself. He should be able to, certainly he'll beat the Stormtroopers once he gets into melee. I think with Battlecry, he'll beat the Purifiers and the Interceptors and the Strike Squad. But now we're seeing a lot of levels on squads. Level 3 Strikes, Level 3 Interceptors, Level 3 Purifiers, Level 3 Stormtroopers on both sides. In the middle right here, we have some Interceptors using both Ward as well as, I think, Canticle of Absolution. trying to benefit from that. Unfortunately, the Bro Captain cannot take on all of these things right here. Maybe the Assault Marines, but not the Terminators. And I think this Rhino, unfortunately, really isn't doing enough, and I don't think that was a good late-game purchase. Just not really strong enough, I think, with that heavy bolter turret. Probably going to get some repairs with the Stormtroopers. Actually, the Stormtroopers not even bothering to repair. And I mean, at this point, their time would probably be better off spent shooting, since they do have that plasma damage. Blessed Spartan lost his scouts, meanwhile, but it's not like he really needs it. He's got level 4 attacks, level 3 Assault Marines, level 3 Devastators, level 3 Librarian, and Assault Terminators do not level. And he's now finally switching to the Thunderhammer. So what did I say? Like, almost no matter what happens, we're going to see a War Gear switch from the Force Commander if they do get that that Power Sword. We're seeing 2 Lightning Claw Terminators go after the Rhino, and they're still going to do some damage to it. Rhino running away. Terminators teleport in. I think they're actually doing, let me see. They're doing like 20 damage to that Rhino per hit with the Lightning Claws, and they attack pretty quickly, so they're doing damage to that Rhino. Meanwhile, Interceptors jump in, trying to get that point. It's cutting it very, very close for Blessed Spartan. He's attacking with range fire, needs to activate Kraken Bolts, and there he goes. But still, just because it's range fire, still not really doing enough damage to these Interceptors. Not quickly enough. We might see a smite over here, and hopefully some Assault Terminators getting in there. That should be at least enough to stop the capture. And yeah, I mean, just those Interceptors take so much damage from those Lightning Claws. But somehow a decap and an orbital bombardment, I think, from Blessed Spartan, and he finally loses his Devastators, which is really sad. Those Devastators were so well played from Blessed Spartan. They did so much. Oh, so very close call. Blessed Spartan apparently lost every VP, and then it was a single cap in Forest Radio's favor, and then he actually managed to capture with his tax. Probably if he tried capturing with anything else, he probably would have lost it. Single cap for Blessed Spartan. Meanwhile, Forest Radio capturing Blessed Spartan's natural, but Blessed Spartan also capturing Forest Radio's natural. So we have Terminators going in, and even at partial health, they do so much. Double cap now for Blessed Spartan, 15 to 3 VPs, and Forest Radio not managing to get anything on the point because the Terminators are still here, still disrupting, still fighting, and it's a double cap for Blessed Spartan. Alright, and Blessed Spartan takes it. Quite a miraculous comeback, and so many close calls in the end. So many quick, amazing VP saves from him. Yeah, pretty incredible game. Running out of eloquent words for it. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.